Prime Minister has pledged to axe courses with low earnings potential and little chance of job progression. 1 in 8 students can see their course axed as a result, and there would be then 130,000 fewer university places available. The Conservatives say this will save £910 million in unpaid student loans by the end of the decade, which could pay for an extra 100,000 apprenticeships, to which there is actually a point. Let's just have a look at what we mean with this phrase. So yes, Mickey Mouse degree. There we are. See what I did there? Mickey Mouse degree, the protractor. Yes, OK. But I feel we should put some apostrophes, some inverted commas in there, because the people get very offended when you start listing so-called useless degrees. I'm just remembering back to when the phrase was first used, and a particular minister called Margaret Hodge. So she was a minister under Tony Blair. We think she's the one. She was an education minister. And let's just select an image here and just pull it out. And during a discussion on higher education, she defined a Mickey Mouse course as one, this is the phrase, one where the content is perhaps not as rigorous as one would expect, and where the degree itself may not have huge relevance in the labour market. And then it took off because Labour was trying to get 50% of students into higher education. We also need to find an image for Jay Leno here, the talk show host in the States, because here's him quipping in this territory. In college, philosophy majors study if the glass is half full, if the glass is half empty. That prepares them for a career later as a waiter. That's what he said. But here's the thing. Is philosophy a Mickey Mouse degree? Let's think about that for a second. Socrates would raise an eyebrow, wouldn't he? But why don't we make that argument? OK, traditionalists say we are not talking about great subjects like philosophy and history, classics, English literature. They're not talking about that. They're talking about newfangled degrees. But it's worth a thought that the jobs market isn't the only test. This is a website called The Student Room. And they say, what's the best example of Mickey Mouse degrees? Sociology, media, sports science, photography, animation, fashion, interior design, music studies, journalism, tourism and travel, video games development, events management. That's their list. And then someone says, wait a minute, they're pretty legitimate. All of these degrees can lead directly to a career in the relevant field. And someone else says, yes, they all have their place. So actually the discussion is quite just a bit more subtle. Isn't it, Yasmin?
It is.
Because actually, if you
let me tell you, I did a Mickey Mouse degree, obviously, because it's on the list here of English literature.
Well, I did English literature.
I did two degrees in English literature.
Well, that's not what we call a Mickey Mouse degree.
Well,
It's
this
surf
says
studies.
here, the worst value for money. He's talking about the job market. You know, university is not just about the job you walk into. It's teaching you how to think. It's teaching you how to expand your horizons. It's teaching you how to learn, lifelong learning. I teach at a university. I'm a working part-time professor at Middlesex, and most of our students are the first to go to university. You cannot imagine how important and exciting it is for them.
Well, it depends on what they study.
Well, no. Some of them are studying. In fact,
studies.
a lot of these are the subjects they're studying, and they're brilliant at it. My only hope is this man, this Prime Minister, will be gone in 4 weeks. So this is only to create yet another group of people we can hate.
Tim.
Look, we have brilliant universities in our country. Some of the best universities in the world are in Britain. But I'm afraid some of the worst universities in Europe are in Britain as well. Students, I think, a lot of them succeed in higher education. They get the benefits that Yasmin describes. But a lot of people actually end up with a qualification that isn't really worth very much. They're saddled with enormous amounts of debt. And what should have happened when tuition fees was introduced was that we should have had a real diversity of provision. And people talked about there being 2-year courses rather than 3-year courses. There would be innovation in the higher education sector. None of that's happened. Almost every university charged the £9,000, which was the first cost of the tuition fee. And since the lockdown, actually, there's been less face-to-face education that was stopped during lockdown for obvious reasons, but hasn't been returned. The university sector, some of it's brilliant, like most walks of life, but some of it is rubbish. And we need a reform of the university sector, and we shouldn't be putting public money, students' borrowings, into anything that doesn't really serve anyone.
OK,
and
we
do need apprenticeships. We do need vocational education.
But what is a Mickey Mouse degree? Because if you do something, I mean, there's a degree, golf course management, for example, which sounds ridiculous. So you study history or you study golf course. Actually, arguably, golf course management is more likely to get you a job than a history degree.
Absolutely.
So I don't know why we're calling them Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, well, exactly. And it's not keeping up with, classics, which Boris Johnson, of course,
That's a Mickey Mouse
imbibed.
degree.
To me, okay, it's great if you're rich and able to have the luxury of and I'm not under whatever the word is, bad mouthing it, but actually, fashion or games development, which Middlesex does, actually is leading to jobs.
Video game development.
Yeah.
All right.
So
Peter, but hang on,
I think
let's talk to somebody who
apprenticeships
knows
are important.
something. Peter in Wolverhampton, hello.
Morning, Jeremy.
I don't know if you know more than Yasmin, but you're an academic as well.
Yes, I teach at the University of Wolverhampton, and I'm really outraged by this notion of Mickey Mouse. It's such an insult to hard-working students.
Well, let me give you an example. Media studies. I've never met
anyone...
anyone...
that's what I teach.
That's what I teach. How dare you?
Well, but what...
Mr. Vine?
Oh, dear. I've gone...
Jeremy...
I've not met anyone who's employed in media who's got a media studies degree.
Several of our students have gone in.
I work for the Times. Nearly all of the journalists there have never studied media studies. They're specialists in certain subjects, and then they become journalists later.
Go on, Peter. Speak up for media studies.
Look. Some of the greatest innovations in 20th century thought have been developed in English, media studies and sociology and philosophy. And, it's just outrageous to say they're useless.
I mean, media studies, if it's about how to work a camera and all that stuff, or the history of journalism, I don't see the point in it. I'm sorry.
It's not the history of journalism.
It's not academic.
It's how to do journalism. It's how to use words.
Or shorthand.
It's how to use the impact that you can make with words and pictures and images. And actually, in the modern world, that's what we live off. Not Plato.
Peter, if you want, you can argue that history's a Mickey Mouse degree, because we're open to that.
Well, it's just all such an insult. I think if you look at the history of the 20th century, some of these Mickey Mouse subjects have been some of the greatest thinkers, people like Jacques Derrida and all these guys. They were all in media studies, philosophy and English. They're great people.
Yeah, fair comment, Tim. Maybe you're wrong. Maybe you're wrong.
Well, look, I think there are obviously some students that are very impressive, who've come from all sorts of different backgrounds. I don't think we're attacking the students. I think much more we're attacking people like Peter, people who make their money out of not necessarily giving kids the skills that will really help them to succeed.
Still there? Can Peter come back?
Well, there's nothing more skilled than being able to think. I think that's just a piece of man of the world realism, and it's nonsense.
OK, Peter, thank you. Now, calls on whether this crackdown on Mickey Mouse university degrees. I've suddenly discovered everyone around me here studied media studies. After Tim and I said it was useless, turns out everyone did it. OK, let's get to some of your messages here. Deborah on Twitter says the degrees they've been allowing to happen for 14 years under their watch, Mickey Mouse degrees, they're basically calling themselves out. It's true, it's very difficult as the governing party to complain about stuff when you're in charge. Pam on Facebook says, my daughter completed her degree 2 years ago but has no steady job. Such a waste of money, huge debt. My son did an apprenticeship and has had a good job for 3 years with great qualifications and experience. Stephen from Sunderland is on the line. Hi, Stephen.
Hello.
Do you think some of these degrees leave people completely unprepared for life?
Yes, very much so. I mean, the point you made about Mickey Mouse degrees, well, in that sense, Mickey Mouse degrees give you the impression that obviously universities like Disneyland. And I think what happens is people go to university and they tell them that it's this great experience. There's very little emphasis on the work that they have to do. And when they come out of university, all of a sudden reality hits. I've now got to get a job. I've got to work 5 days a week. I've got to work 48 weeks of the year. Yep. And all of a sudden, that reality is too much to take. So they turn around, go straight back into university and continue to do degrees.
Oh, so they go back and do another degree. I don't know about that because that gets so expensive. It's just more that they're carrying 50 grand's worth of debt and they're working in McDonald's, basically. That's the issue. And someone did a list of degrees that are most likely to end up in a job in McDonald's, and they, I'm afraid, media studies was in there. So what degree did you do, Stephen?
Sometimes the fact that people don't want to work in a real world and have to don't do something very, very productive and a major contribution, like in Germany, if you qualify and you get a degree, your expenses are covered if you're putting something back into the economy and back into German industry.
Okay, Stephen, thank you.
There should be more emphasis in this country on that.
Okay, thank you so much. Alison in Leeds, what about yourself? What's happening?
I'd just like to say that my daughter did a so-called Mickey Mouse degree. She did interior design as a foundation course, having messed up her A-levels and O-levels completely, or GCSEs. She then loved it so much, she carried on and did a further year's training to get a full degree. And to cut a very long story short, she has ended up now in a very highly paid job, better than an MP, and has done very well out of it.
Oh,
when
so she's
I would have thought...
She's working in interior design?
Yes.
Okay. And has she got her own business, or she's working for somebody else, or what?
No, she works for a large company.
That's great.
She is.
But that, that's the funny thing, Alison, that often when people say Mickey Mouse degrees, and let's take interior design, they mean degrees that aren't history, philosophy, English literature. And actually, Tim, we may have it the wrong way around, because that's a brilliant course to do.
I think why I'm in favour of apprenticeships is people finish good apprenticeships. Not all apprenticeships are good. They finish apprenticeships with a real skill that sets them up for a long time. And I think this sounds like this interior design course is exactly the same. The problem is, I think, what we're against is a lot of people studying subjects where there isn't much employability. They get into a lot of debt, and they go to an institution which isn't of the highest standard. It's the combination of those three things that is the big problem. And I think we have a model at the moment which needs to change. We shouldn't just think your only chance to go to university or get a skill is at 18 to 21. People are going to have to learn through life now, reinvent themselves in their 30s and 40s. And we need the money in the public sector to enable that.
True.
Not put it all in at that time.
Ollie is in Brighton. Hi, Ollie.
Hello, good morning.
You at the university or as a staff member or what?
Indeed, yeah. So I graduated a couple of years ago from a marketing degree, and I now work there in the Careers and Employability department. So it's my job to try and get students jobs after they've completed their degrees.
I see. So you see it from both sides, but you've got a job in marketing having done a marketing degree. So that's sort of a perfect fit.
Exactly, yeah. But I sort of look at some of our other degrees, so like our media studies degree at the university, and when you look at some of our graduate outcomes data, we've got sort of 66% of our graduates end up in highly skilled work after completing a media studies degree. And we do track those. So when we sort of call them Mickey Mouse degrees, they're not always.
Well, I don't know what highly skilled work is. I mean, I've never done any myself. What's that?
Bicycling.
Yeah, so it comes under different categories. So we talk about sort of artistic, literary and media occupations. So it's things that are related to the degree and paid at a high level.
I see.
So things that graduate call highly skilled, whether we'd describe them as highly skilled or not, I'm not quite sure.
What's the percentage for the average student? Say the media one is 66%. What's the average graduate employment in those highly paid jobs?
Yeah, so it depends on the course, and it really is different for each course. For average in the UK, I think we're at about 68% for people who are either working or doing further study after working, and then the rest are either doing further study or unemployed after their degree.
I'm not very convinced by that. I mean, but at Brighton University, what's the average of people going out and getting a decent job? 50%?
No, so we have, looking at the graduate outcome survey, 88% of our students go on to either do work or further study after their degrees.
I've heard good things.
Rubbish.
I've heard good things about Brighton, Ollie.
Newspapers.
I've heard good things about
work or further studies. That covers a lot of things.
And that's why Ollie's in marketing. Do you know that's the way he dropped the figure to the end of the conversation? Thank you, Ollie. Thanks for watching. We've got serious people watching this show. He's going to go far. And also, I mean, we're joking about media studies and stuff. I don't know if you've seen the Labour TikTok account. There's a kid on that, and I know what, it's hilarious. And they've completely worked out how to do TikTok in an election, which no one's really done before. And I guarantee they're a media studies graduate. Guaranteed. Probably still at college. Siobhan in Bournemouth, another place with a good university. How are you, Siobhan?
I'm very well, thank you.
What do you think of Mickey Mouse degrees?
Well, I think it's a way of people, not everybody knows exactly what they want to do, when they leave school. But I think there's a general crackdown from the Tories on social mobility for working class people.
Yeah.
Oh, rubbish.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
It's just
Absolutely.
I hadn't read into that. So
my
you mean
friend-
that so the Blair's idea of having 50% of students at college, Siobhan, you think the Tories don't like it?
No, they don't. And they want the only way to get into media studies is to have a parent in TV or in the newspaper or who goes to a very good school.
I see. Tim, is that
and
true?
You can buy your way in.
I have no parent or relation in journalism, and I'm at the Times. I didn't do a media studies course. And just to take you up on the thing that the Tories are somehow against social mobility, look at Tony Blair's son. It was Tony Blair who expanded universities. Tony Blair's son was recently on the Sunday Times rich list, Ewan, I think.
Yeah.
And he has made his money promoting vocational education because he, unlike his father, discovered the real route for the working class to take off if they haven't been traditionally trained is through these vocational apprenticeships
It's one of the most amazing...
that the Tories are promoting.
Ewan Blair is
I
one of
think
the most
that's just
amazing
unfair.
untold stories, yeah.
Yeah.
Because he's
But-
made about 10 billion.
But Siobhan is right. In this class-ridden society where the class structure never shifts, this idea that if your posh boy or girl go to Oxford, I went to Oxford, the teaching was abysmal.
Was it?
I hated it. And I can tell you, it's this snobbery and this kind of non-critical way of looking at
Okay,
Oxford and
okay.
Cambridge that gives them the
There was
edge.
that article recently by somebody who said that young people don't work hard enough. I worked all the hours God sends, and the name of the person who wrote it was Sophia Money Coots.